Hi there, and welcome to the Eerie World's Rogues Gallery podcast. I'm AvidEmma, and I'm here with AvidJoe.
Hey everyone.
And today we're going to be talking Wretched Mortals. Joe, are you a Wretched Mortals fan? Do you like
I kind of like leaving a blank page for this podcast to decide whether I'm a fan or not. But I get the feeling that it's going to be right up my street, yeah.
Excellent. This is probably my favourite horde since Hauntings. I just love them. I think they're great. Now, what we're going to do with this really short little podcast is we're going to take a look at some of the mad, bad and dangerous to know from the world of Wretched Mortals.
Awesome. So
I hope you're ready to learn and be terrified. Now, the thing I really love about this horde is that every single character in it is based on a real live living person.
Oh, okay,
well, not currently living.
Well, yeah. Wretched Mortals. It'd be kind of rude to call someone a Wretched Mortal that was still alive. Yeah.
So all of the people in Wretched Mortals, we've got some evidence of them existing in some way, shape or form in the real world, which I think is really, really exciting. But granted, folklore has kind of taken over and turned them all into something else. So today, we're going to be looking at one of my very favourite topics. I've called this Fangs a lot. So we're looking at vampires today.
Oh, lovely. It's nice to get some vampires going in Eerie Worlds. I think it was like a matter of like time. I think lots of people were like, okay, cool, but where's the vampire energy?
Yeah, We've got a couple of types of vampire in Eerie Worlds. Like we've got Strigoi, we've got Dampier, but I'm really excited about these because these are people who were at some point in their life accused of being a vampire.
I really like, I kind of like these sort of how people have misunderstood people's behaviours and then class them as vampires. So I'm very excited to hear like some of the backstories for some of them. I'm sure some of them are like fairly like...
Some of them are wild.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get started. We're going to start on my personal favourite, Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Do you know anything about Elizabeth Bathory?
I know nothing at all. This is perfect.
Wonderful. That's what I like to hear. So, for those of you who don't know, and Joe, Countess Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian, countess. I feel like I've said countess quite a few times now. I've lost count of the countess. So, she was a Hungarian countess, and shortly after her husband died, she was accused of all manner of terrible, horrible things. Some of this is going to be pretty horrible, so if anyone's of a weak disposition, turn this off.
For a little bit,
yeah. You probably aren't playing Eerie Worlds if you're of a weak disposition. Basically, she was accused of killing lots of young women in the local area, and worse still, she was accused of doing it in order to try and stay young.
Like actually like draining the life out of people,
But over time, this story has changed a bit. So at one point, people said she was drinking the blood of these young women. And this is probably like peak folklore for her. People said she used to bathe in baths of blood from these young women. So
that's terrifying. Is it when you're sort of like researching, is it like, do you have to go off who's the most reliable source for this information?
Yeah, I definitely have like 3 or 4 tabs open, and you know when you read these you're like, are you telling me a good story or are you telling me the truth?
No, which one should I pick?
She got arrested. She did get arrested for this. There's 2 versions of her getting arrested story. So there's one where she was just at her dinner and people like burst into the dining room and took her away, which sounds quite traumatic anyway. I think if I was interrupted during my dinner, I'd be raging. I also wouldn't be killing lots of young women though, exactly. So she probably had it coming. But the other version is that she got caught in the act, and that as they stormed in, she was like mid-bite on a person. So you can decide which one of them is true. Granted, what we can also interpret from this is that when her husband died, she became a very wealthy and very powerful woman because she'd like inherited everything from him. And the person who was kind of put in place to like look after the estate, it was him that was accusing her of all this stuff. So
okay, so there's like some kind of like, you're getting something out of this if you're out of the picture.
I think there's some historical misogyny going on here.
A little bit.
Now the really interesting thing as well is there isn't really, apart from testimony from staff in our I keep saying castle. I don't know if she lived in a castle. I've just headcanoned a castle.
Yeah, I think countess and castle kind of makes me think that kind of just, that's the same word, isn't it? That's just
that's where I've decided she lives.
Yes.
But there was a lot of testimony from her staff and the people who worked in her home, but there aren't any bodies.
Oh, just completely disappeared.
There's nothing. So she was either like Dexter level of cleaning up, or it didn't happen.
Completely innocent.
Do we want another vampire? Do you want another vampire?
Another vampire would be awesome.
I can go a step better. I can give you a group of vampires. So we are going to look at the Casket Girls. Have you ever heard of the Casket Girls?
I have not. I'm drawing blanks on these ones.
Brilliant, because this is one I didn't know about until I was researching some cards for Eerie. So the Casket Girls are a group of possible vampires from New Orleans, which I feel like is a vampire hotspot. If Anne Rice kind of like True Blood is anything to go by.
Voodoo characters at New Orleans in there.
So the Casket Girls were initially a group of young women who were sent over to New Orleans from France. The initial plan was they were called the King's Daughters, or the Daughters of the King, and basically the idea was that in France they would like pay their dowry to send them over to the new colonies to try and like be like, oh look, everyone should move here because look at all these young women ready to get married.
Awesome.
Nobody asked what the young women thought. But the Casket Girls weren't quite so fortunate. They were quite often people who were maybe from orphanages or charitable places, and they got sent over. And their name is where the vampire myth comes from. So they originally were called Cassette Girls because that was the little boxes they carried.
Oh, okay.
And then that got changed to Casquette, which was also the little boxes. And then it just became caskets. And everyone went, coffins?
Coffins, vampires.
So the Casket Girls, they arrived in New Orleans. They lived with a group of nuns. And then all manner of strange things happened. So strange that sometimes my research wouldn't tell me what the strange things were.
Yeah, but they were just strange, weren't they? Just like strange occurrences.
The main thing seems to be that they were all very pale and New Orleans is very hot. So their skin burnt really quickly. So people were like, oh, definitely vampirism.
Yeah, definitely a vampire.
Look at all these pasty young women burning. I mean, I burn if it's just a particularly less grey day in Scotland. So, and the other interesting thing is that when the strange occurrences started, the nuns who they were living with decided to go through all their little caskets to see what are you hiding? Why are you carrying these everywhere? And there was nothing in them.
Well, yeah. So there's actually the caskets didn't contain anything, but it was just what they were sent over with. Is that right?
They were just carrying these little boxes about, and apparently there was nothing in them. So all these nuns freaked out and locked them all inside.
Okay. A clear example of not understanding something and being scared of it.
Instead of going, girls, why are all these suitcases empty? They just went, nail them in. Nail them in.
Of them.
So that's the Casket Girls. They get talked about on a lot of like tours and things in New Orleans, and it's somewhere I would love to go and just go on a kind of ghost spooky tour.
Definitely.
I'd love to go on one of them.
I really love how that story, it is just like an evolution of from cassette to casket, and then it's just like, okay, a vampire.
It's just wordplay.
Yeah.
But I love this story just because this idea of it's this group of women, we've got no idea anything about them as individuals. It's just this air of mystery around them.
Any questions? You're a bit pale.
Exactly.
Things are adding up.
It feels like such a cool card for Eerie as well, because like it's just a really good example how folklore changes over time.
Yes, I love like the name even changing from cassette right through to casket. What was the middle ground bit? It was
casket, so it's spelled like Queuettes.
Yeah. And I love that with like some of the folklore in Eerie, because you can actually see how the story evolves and like how it grows, and it's so awesome.
That's the really fun thing about folklore, is it's so easy to get either misinterpreted or reinterpreted. And obviously like the way we look at things in our time period would change how it was seen at the time, so there's something really fun about reading these stories and watching them just shift and change, and who's telling the story is part of that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really, really fun about these Wretched Mortal cards. Plus, I was just so happy to get two vampires. It's like one major vampire and a whole group.
Yeah, well, Wretched Mortals would be the time to do that.
Now, would you like a wee bonus person?
Of course.
So we're not going to go vampire this time. We're going to go possible immortal. So this time we're going to look at the Count of Saint Germain. Do you know this one, Joe?
Well, Saint Germain like rings a bell, like the name, but I don't know any story behind it. No.
Amazing. So the Count of Saint Germain, just like rocked up in the 1700s. So went, hey guys, I'm 500 years old, and everyone went, okay.
Yeah, good.
And we've got no evidence of where he came from, when he was born, or what he did before he just sort of turned up in Europe. There's no evidence at all, and I tried and I found nothing.
I wonder like what kind of vibe must you be giving off for people to believe that you are 500? Like
Absolutely.
What are the boxes you have to tick to pass as a 500-year-old?
Well, for the Count of Saint Germain, the way he managed to pull this off was just turning up as like peak of kind of European elegance. So he was super into art and music. He played the violin. He sang. He wrote all these sonatas and operas, and he wrote loads and loads of music during the little time period we know he did exist.
Yeah.
And everyone just thought he was cool.
Yeah. It must have been just like, there's no way that you have time to do all of these things. You must be immortal. And
Absolutely. Because think of how long it takes you to learn how to get good at something. And even like people who are, experts at things still had to work really, really hard. So for him to just rock up and be like, hey everyone, here's my violin, I'm 500 years old, and just blow everyone away. I'd be like, yes, he's definitely immortal. We do know he did die, so there's evidence there. Or when I say evidence, there's some paperwork saying this man died.
Yes,
so part of me is also a bit like, but do we know for sure? Or like I think I'm really clinging to he is immortal, even though somebody went and then he died.
He just didn't want the publicity that comes with being 500 years old. He's like, it's not worth it.
Exactly. He gives me really strong the vampire Lestat vibes. He definitely feels like an Anne Rice character, especially like the idea that like Lestat had a little short career as a rock star. I like to think that one day the Count of Saint Germain's going to turn up and just be like in a K-pop band or something like that.
Flying under the radar.
But yeah, I thought these three fit really well together. We've got two vampires, or a group of vampires, or possible immortal.
Yeah, this Wretched Mortals horde is like shaping up to be a real corker. I'm really excited to get my hands on these ones.
I think I really like about these cards as well as the cards sort of suggest the story. So the card images. So the Casket Girls art has like the ship in the background that they came over from France on, and it's got the little caskets as well. So there's some really cool stuff happening with the art as well to try and like tempt you to read
definitely.
the story.
I think every time I pick up a fresh new Wretched Mortals card, I'm definitely gonna check out the story on the back.
Yep. So these are our three vampires / immortals for the Wretched Mortals Rogues Gallery.
Well, thank you so much for like putting those together. That's all. I actually can't wait to like learn about some more ones now.
Thank you for listening to me ramble.
No, it's been awesome. I'm not very well versed in my like vampires or like immortal beings. Like I'm a big cryptozoology kind of fan. I'm very excited to broaden my horizons with more.
These are definitely the cards I enjoy researching and writing the most. I think it's because there's a little story behind them.
Yeah.
And it makes them a lot of fun, and it just adds something when you know they definitely existed at some point in time, even if we can't always pinpoint how long they existed for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really cool.
This has been the Eerie World's Rogues Gallery podcast, and thank you for joining us.